Well, we're joined today by a bit of a legend, actually. Someone that I've actually come to really respect and admire. Started in the SAAF. Was with Anglo for a while. Flew the G550 and Global 6000 amongst others. Currently with Airlink on the Embraer 135-145. And he's the man behind Aviation for SA. But most notably, you might know him. He's the guy that competes in the Ironman wearing a woolly cow outfit supporting children suffering for cancer.
Is that you?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
that is
him.
me. I found out like 5 minutes ago. I'm like, I know him. I know him, but I know him.
Yeah, and that is by far your coolest credential, right?
Yeah, that's a pretty decent CV there. Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Don't stop, keep going. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. But yeah, great to have you here, man. And you've been such a good supporter of us. You actually called me one day just after we had finished the podcast, and you said, "Hey, you guys are doing a good job, and we should get together and get on the show." And that was a while ago, and we've actually just been connecting day after day on social platforms like LinkedIn and that, supporting each other as we go. Craig, over to you, man.
It's true, you guys are doing such an amazing job, and it helped me with my training. Beginning of the year, when we were training for our various events, I would be on the treadmill in the gym, and I'd have your podcast on, and it kept me going for 45 minutes. Instead of my normal 20-minute session I had to do, I kept running until your session was over. So those were the times when I thought, oh my goodness, you're still talking for an hour, and I had to keep running for the hour. But it entertained me, it kept me fit, and I'm appreciative for those days. And then from there, you guys have just grown from strength to strength, and I'm pleased to be part of this process and having the session with you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. That's kind of you to say. I think you need these sort of connections. You need a bit of not backup, but you gave us the confirmation that we're doing the right thing, we're going in the right direction, and then it makes us more keen to actually carry on. You say, at least we got the support of Craig, we're going to carry on. So I think everyone needs that right now. There's so many guys out there trying new things, doing new things, and we all got to support each other. And this aviation community in South Africa is a real community, and I think it's brought us all closer together.
I think we had a chat a while ago, and we said that, or I said that I haven't felt as connected to aviation as I do right now. My journey has taken me through a wide spectrum of aviation. So even though I'm not in the cockpit or the flight deck, and that's actually where my passion is, I miss that incredibly. But just engaging with the industry has just fulfilled me. It's given me almost like this self-worth. It's, there are people suffering, no doubt about that. But there's also others that are doing very well. And I'm enjoying this period. Selfishly, I'm enjoying it. I'm running out of money, I'm sure like most people are. But it's a time where we are actually spending time with our friends and our family. Our time is our own, actually, and what we do at this time is actually going to determine how successful we're going to be post-COVID.
I have to agree with that, Craig. I mean, we were actually just chatting outside and over a quick coffee, same thing. In a weird kind of way, it really is just a brilliant time to bond with your family. I mean, I've got this little routine going now. Every evening I'm playing with my little boy in the garden, we're searching for chochos, and I spend 2 hours with him, and just like last night, listening to his intoxicating little laughter. I couldn't get enough of it, and I've realized it's because of this routine that we have now that you didn't have before when you had a roster, that you just get to enjoy this time. It's magic, man. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's going to be, like you said, it might be hard to go back into that airline pilot lifestyle. And you're right, when we're looking at aviation from a different angle now, and you feel more part of it, and it's a nice thing, it's a nice feeling. And like I say, the big thing for me has been this real sense of coming together, and not even just with South Africans, from all over the world. And that's what the podcast has given us so much, as these connections from Europe and the States, really been great. But Craig, you're involved with Aviation for SA, it's your company, and you guys are, thank goodness you guys are there, because we wouldn't have any news to talk about on our Friday show. So it's an awesome source of news for us and a lot of other people. But I maintain, if you want to stay in the industry right now, you're at home, you're not flying, you're missing aviation, Aviation for SA is the place to go. Keep you on your toes, keeps you up to date with what's going on. Just tell us a bit more about it and your journey there, Craig, and possibly where you see it in the future.
It's funny how it all started. As a pilot, I acknowledge that I didn't know the law as well as I should. And then when I became an instructor in a DFE, when I was testing pilots, I realized it wasn't just me, it's them as well. And even at Anglo American, when I headed up the training and also the admin, legal and finance, we had to manage the 127, 121, 135, all the parts of the legislation. And I found the legislation, it was difficult to access. And trying to navigate around the CAA website, it's tricky. And the information is not readily available. So I thought, let me try and do something to make this legislation easily available to the industry. So I started then going through the state library. I went to Government Printing Works and I got all the government gazettes ever published on legislation. And I started putting this legislation together. I took the originating act or the regulation and I started amending it. And when I'm saying it's actually the team that I'm working with. I've got a great team. And we started amending the legislation. So we've got now the consolidated legislation as promulgated. Not published by third parties. We've got it now out of the government gazettes. So I'm having an app developed, and this legislation is now in the app, and it makes it available on your smart device. And it's a bargain. So offline, you could be at 40,000 feet, you could be sitting under a tree with your PC-12. You want to access anything regarding legislation, AICs, ARPs, legislation, here it is on the device. And it's hyperlinked, it's all linked together, amendments are highlighted. So it just makes the legislation easy to access for those that need it. And then in the process, because the app was taking longer to develop, we were having a few hiccups along the way. I thought, let me start with let me try and create a newsletter to inform the industry when there are changes. I mean, because how many of us go and look on the DOT's website or the CAA website? We don't go looking for legislative changes. We're lazy. We want to be told what's changed. So the team and we then dig through all the legislation. We find the changes, proposed amendments, ARCs, ARPs, anything that affects us in the aviation fraternity. We find what it is. We put it together in the newsletter and we distribute it to the industry. And I found that it's actually quite boring to receive a newsletter with what's changed in legislation. Where's the incentive? This is actually a boring newsletter. So to spice it up, I then managed to engage with the leading aviation magazines. So the Athol France's, the Guy Leach's, Global Aviator, and so we have like this great synergistic relationship where I have their magazines with me and they have my ad with them. And now this newsletter is spiced up because there's magazines that you can download, there's podcasts, you guys are on the podcast, so if somebody's lying in bed in the morning or in the evening and they want to listen to something or they want to watch something, there's links to YouTube videos, there's links to your sites. Others are creating also not similar podcasts, but also podcasts that are focused on aviation. So it's a great one-stop shop for the industry just to be updated with what's happening in the industry. And it takes a lot of work. I'm loving it because it's getting me into the industry, and I'm getting good feedback. It's growing. The subscribers on this, it's free. The subscribers on the newsletter are growing every day, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
And just listening to you, as much as work it is for you and your team, that's the only way you actually get deeply involved in the aviation industry.
Yes.
So, as you're saying, you're dealing with the Athols and the guys and all of that, plus everybody else. That, it just cements that relationship as well.
It's
true.
Great. It's true. I mean, the same thing, Heidi at World Air News, I'm engaging with them. And also then through Aviation for SA, people seem to think that I'm the go-to in law. So I'm getting the calls on where do I find this in the legislation and how do I interpret this, and does the legislation, what does it say about this? So it's getting me also then into the legislation, and then I end up responding to the guys, and it keeps the mind stimulated.
Yeah, you can say that again, and it's every level of aviation. If you're busy doing your PPL at the moment, you've got to be subscribed to that newsletter. If you're an airline pilot for South African airline pilot based in Emirates, or subscribe. It really keeps you up to date with what's happening. All the details with that will be in the show notes, so do subscribe. It's well worth it, and it is definitely by far the best reference for news. It really is. I mean, I use it all the time. Just Craig, just go into a bit. We've pushed week on week, and Brett will jump in here, about the importance of social accounts, and particularly LinkedIn. Obviously, you're very active on LinkedIn. Just give us the benefit that you've got out of it, and I don't just mean from growing your business, but from a personal level, and if it has maybe directed your path a little bit differently, you've been able to connect with people and see what people want. And I maintain LinkedIn the best place to be, but just give us your sort of journey on LinkedIn and your view.
I believe relationship building is an element to success. You can't do it on your own. And so you've got social media, you've got LinkedIn. Well, the two social media platforms that I use is Facebook and social media, Facebook and LinkedIn. And I find LinkedIn is a very professional network. So I'll have different posts on LinkedIn versus Facebook. Facebook, every Tom, Dick and Harry reads it and they like sharing it, and that's good for brand awareness. LinkedIn, you're dealing with specifics. So I've got followers on my on the LinkedIn page are CEOs, pilots. It's high profile individuals, and by engaging with them through the LinkedIn platform, it boosts the brand, it boosts the awareness, and it's proper. It's almost like communicating. It's business communicating with these guys. So it depends on if somebody wants to look at social media marketing, you've almost got to define your strategy. Do you want to go LinkedIn and deal with the professionals, or do you want to go Facebook and deal with a more informal way of communicating? So for me, it's about the networking, and it's about the brand awareness. So it's not only Craig and Aviation for SA, it's together. It's this brand, and so I found that it's through the relationship building and through this connectivity, it's been growing the exposure of the brand, and that to me, and in fact to any business, it's hugely beneficial. You want to grow your brand, you want to create awareness for what you're doing, and you do that through social media.
Yeah, it's a wonderful platform, and you've managed to do something quite complicated, because your personal brand is very strong, and you've managed to separate the Aviation for SA. You're growing your Aviation for SA brand, but your personal brand is growing at the same rate. It's not always easy we've seen it with the podcast. Part of this journey for us has been the whole trial and error thing. Start something and see what happens. I like that Jordan Peterson saying, just start something, even if you do it really badly at first, you'll find your way. And that's kind of where we are. But you learn from guys like you, Craig. It's important. We've picked up a lot of things from you along the way, and so thanks for that. Obviously, you with Link. Thank goodness for Airlink and SAAF Air, keeping the aircraft in the South African skies. I think, what was it, 53 flights a day Airlink are up to now, or something like that. It's quite a high number. And growing, yeah. So really the national carrier right now. No mistaking that. COVID's going to end at some point. Where do you see South African aviation?
I'm hopeful for our industry. I don't believe it's going to be a long and protracted recovery. I'm hopeful for a V-shaped recovery. And if I have a look at the international markets, they're recovering much faster than the gloomy predictions, and I anticipate the same for our industry. the crucial thing is to get those borders open, get down to level 1, get the tourists into South Africa, get us into the rest of Africa, start opening the borders, get the business going. And I think that we need to kickstart this economy. And so it doesn't only go about aviation. In fact, aviation it's a link in the economy. Without aviation, the economy is not going to recover. So aviation leads the recovery, and that is preceded by the borders opening. I believe that when the borders open, we will kickstart this economy, and tourism will increase, business will increase, aviation will increase. I think it will probably take maybe a year or so to return to the pre-COVID levels, but I'm still hopeful. I think this is a good industry to be in, and the flying schools are actually picking up. There's a lot of PPLs coming through flying schools, and I'd like to encourage those that are looking into aviation to don't give up the dream because of this temporary period we're going through. Keep at it. By the time a PPL gets to sitting in a flight deck of an airliner, it could be anything from 18 months. So in 18 months to 2 years from now, I think there's going to be space for these youngsters to come into the flight deck.
Yeah, it could be the ideal time, actually. Yeah, we agree. It's going to turn around. It's going to play a massive role in the whole economic recovery of certainly in our country. And there'll be some opportunities there.
So we're expecting an announcement next week, hopefully with regards to level 1 and holding thumbs for those borders.
Big time.
If you have a look at the international market, and we can only hope that we follow that same model. Once they've opened their borders, that recovery has been exceptionally big. I mean, JetBlue, another 24 routes they've launched. United, another 7 routes into Africa as well. Hawaii, all over the place. Joburg, yeah. I mean, and that you would have thought those airlines would have held back. Let's just test the water. Not a chance. They're pushing forward. So that recovery is unbelievable. The whole United Airlines furloughing of those 3,000 pilots, that's on hold now. They've figured it out. So they're not putting them on furlough. So that recovery is happening worldwide. We see the numbers we spoke about it last year in China. They're up to 100% of 2019 figures. So let's just hope that South Africa and Africa as a continent follows the same path. I think you're right. They may very well.
I'm hopeful. Mozambique's opened their borders.
Yeah.
Namibia, I saw. I don't know how. Yeah, I think they've opened their borders.
October they're opening, and
Uganda, Zimbabwe.
Yeah, will be not in the month. So we have to follow suit very soon.
I reckon 1st of October we're going to be open.
I hope so.
I reckon. The news that you get through is quite sort of up and down. We received a WhatsApp early this morning from a mate of ours in Singapore. He's with Scoot. They've just got rid of a whole whack of pilots. I can't remember the exact number he said. IAG, the crowd that owns BA, Aer Lingus and Iberia, they've announced big schedule cuts. Obviously, they're just saying the demand is not there. But it's a little bit, I'm finding the aviation news very sensationalized at the moment. Like, yeah, of course the demand is not there. Does that even warrant a news report? The demand's not there right now, but it will be there. And maybe, with these borders opening will be just a little catalyst to start getting the positive news about the industry in. And then the tourism news starts being more positive, and then, step by step. So let's see, but definitely something happening on the horizon.
It will take a while to get all the cogs of the machine turning again, but hopefully 18 months to 2 years at the very most, and then we're back in business. So,
if you look at Mauritius, they're preparing for a influx over the holiday period. The Cape, all those B&Bs, all of that, the hospitality industry, they're all preparing for it. Sounds like somebody knows something, but nobody's saying a thing. So let's just hope that there is a little bit of fire behind the smoke.
Yeah, time will tell, but definitely something going to happen. Craig, I just want to go back a little bit. Your time at Anglo, obviously Anglo's like looking at it from the outside, I would look at it like it's an organized corporate. It's a corporate operation, but it's like run like an airline. There's a lot of guys out there that are going to be starting new things, starting at new companies, be it airlines or whatever you can find. But that whole transition from Anglo, which I think you obviously were a big part of that whole operation, and then moving across to Link, how was that? I mean, it was a bit of a cultural change, I'm sure, but you've obviously settled into Link quite well. So well, in fact, you've been able to branch out and to almost become what I regard Mr. South African aviation right now, to be honest. I think you got the right profile. So just give us a little bit of a background to that shift across to Link, because I'm quite interested in that.
So we were all sitting comfy at Anglo. It was a good company. It was the oldest corporate in the world, 75 years old, and mining was going pear-shaped, and they needed to reduce assets. They needed to focus on core business, and aviation was not a core business in mining. Mining goes down, aviation goes up, and there was a conflict. So we were shut down, and luckily Airlink came to the rescue, and Airlink then wanted the routes, and there was synergy between what Anglo was doing and how we could fit in with Airlink. So we moved across to Airlink, and the advantage now is that we still had a job. In an Embraer, some of us went to the Embraers, the Jetstreams, and the
146.
The 146s. So it was a nice opportunity. So we all moved into the right-hand seat. The Jetstream 41 guys went across as captains, and we moved into the right-hand seat. So for me, I actually enjoyed sitting there, because now I'm flying with guys that I had never flown before. These were early 20-year-olds that were captains in this Embraer, and I was flying with those that were close to retirement. And for me, it was a wonderful learning experience, dealing with the different personalities in the cockpit. So it was fun. For once in my life, I had like no responsibility. I was sitting in the right-hand seat as an FO, and I was doing what the captain wanted me to do. And coming from a senior position and a captain, sitting to the right-hand seat with no responsibility, or less responsibility than what I was used to, it was like freedom. And I learned from them, they learned from me, and it was a wonderful experience. And I didn't have a problem transiting from where I was to the right-hand seat. And then it took about 18 months or 2 years, and then we moved across to the left-hand seat. So going from corporate to airline was an easy transition. The thing is as well, for a young person joining aviation, becoming a corporate pilot is very different to becoming an airline pilot. There's a lot of cultural differences between the two types of flying, and that was where we had to adapt. And it was an easy adaptation. In corporate, we have to do our own flight plans, our own fuel planning. We flew with credit cards. We had to arrange our own catering and CTOTs and pay for everything. We did everything in the corporate. Yes, we had an ops room that did the high-level stuff, but we had to do the day-to-day things for our flight. In an airline, it was a bargain. We arrive at an ops room, we got given a clipboard, now we get an iPad, we brief the crew, we go do the flying, we come back and we hand back the iPad and the clipboard, and we go home. It's a much simpler, easier life. And that's what I love about the airline flying. It's easier, the roster is structured, whereas corporate you can get called an hour or two before, or the day before, and you can't actually plan your life because of the erratic flying that takes place. Airline, you have a roster and you can plan your life, and your wife can plan your life also. My walking, talking diary. She had my roster, and she could tell me where I was buying and when I was shopping and when we were going out.
That's the one thing I miss about not having a roster is like, when you don't want to go to something, like, I'm flying that day. You don't have that.
I've never done that.
Yeah.
Who are we meeting? I know, I'm flying.
I'm definitely flying.
Yeah, I might have heard one or two comments like that.
Just talking about rosters quickly, with you might not have felt it as much, but certainly with us that are sort of out the airline side totally now, a lot of guys are battling without having that roster, because it teaches you how to plan your month ahead. You know a month ahead what you're doing, and suddenly you take that away and you think, geez, what am I going to do tomorrow? And a lot of guys have battled with that. It's actually one of the things where there's this like disconnect that they almost need to be told what to do. And it's something that some of the guys have battled with psychologically. But rosters definitely have their pros and their cons too. I think you're one of the few guys that got to do both. You know, if you start out in corporate, you tend to stay in corporate. It's such a tight-knit community here in South Africa particularly. So I think nice to do both. And whoever said you had a good attitude, Craig, sitting in the right seat and making the most of it. It's, not many guys would. They'd sit in the right seat, throw their hands up and say, what does this guy on the left know? But it's a good attitude to have. It's easy to see why you found success along the way. Can we chat about some news?
Yeah.
Basically, borders are going to open. Flying is going to start. Tourism is going to pick up. Just to, we have to touch on the SAAF stuff. Human Rights Commission, they voted in favour that the rights of the SA Express employees has been infringed upon. Mm-hmm. Hopefully something comes of that. The employees there deserve something. They deserve, at the very least, an explanation as to why they've been thrown to the wolves. I hope something comes of that. The guys deserve it.
Exactly.
And it's quite a big thing. SAA did that flight to, I don't know if they've done it yet. Have they done it already?
No, they're back already.
Okay. Was that their first time in Christchurch?
I think so.
Is it first time in New Zealand? I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't think SAA's ever done a schedule to New Zealand.
It was a 340-600 as well.
So a once-off repatriation flight. I was looking at pictures of it last night on the interwebs, and it looked like they had fun.
It wasn't bad. The price, it said,
17,500 rand one way.
Yeah, but compared to what...
that there's no other flights.
Yeah, and it's a long way.
Yeah, it's a long swim, that. So.
Yeah, it's a lot of juice on a 340-600 as well. Yeah. Yeah, not much else. We've mentioned the job losses and cuts cuts to schedules and that, but that's just the inevitable before things open up. Craig, just want to go back just briefly. You've done the same thing. You are trying to support guys, and the couple of guys that we've supported along the way, you've got in touch with them, and you actually trying to, I think, encourage people like us to get out your shell a little bit and promote yourself, advertise yourself. We keep talking about these transferable skills that we have as pilots. One of the skills that maybe needs development is this being able to have the confidence to go out there and say, hey, you know what, I'm good at this, and I'm going to promote the fact that I'm good at this. We've spoken about LinkedIn already, but it's such a good place to start promoting yourself. So we've tried to get people in, and we've managed to help quite a few people along the way sort their profiles out and start using the platform. But what do you say to the guys out there that have started businesses on the side, that they're starting to get a bit of momentum? What do they do? What's the first step? I know there's a couple of guys that you're trying to get on board, but they may be a little bit reluctant to actually fully commit. You've got to take that step, take that first step.
The guys have good ideas. They've got a business idea and they want to turn their hobbies or their passions into a money spinner. But how do they do that? And you're right, it's a challenge. They have these ideas, but they don't know how to take that first step. And they almost need to do a gap analysis. What are their dreams? Where do they want to go? Where are they now? And what is that gap between their dreams and where they are? And then they need to upskill themselves there. So once they've upskilled and they've got their dream and they're doing their thing, they need their exposure. And you get the exposure through your network. You get your exposure through advertising. And I'm offering through Aviation for SA, if you need exposure for your passion or your hobby, or your money spinner, your future, get in contact with me and I'll put you onto that newsletter. That newsletter is going out to close to 2,000 Aviation subscribers, and you can get the exposure. And by doing this, we're helping each other. You'll advertise on the newsletter, you get exposure, and it will just give your company the boost that maybe that you need. On LinkedIn and on all social media, in fact, the likes, comments, and sharing boosts your profile. So like, comment, and share. Encourage others to like, comment, and share, and it just increases your awareness. It will increase your advertising. It will get you out into the public eye, and that's what you need, because it doesn't matter what you're selling or what services you're offering. When you're in the face of the people, they might not action right now on that product, but it plants the seed, and then at some stage somebody will say, hey, I saw somebody making something out of wood or leather or making biltong. Where was it again? And then they'll go to where they saw that information, and then they'll connect. So you might not get the immediate results, but you're planting seeds, and those seeds germinate. And it's that germination that is going to result then in the growing of the business.
Yeah, it's 100% agree, and it's good advice. Do you also find, though, and what I think could be a factor, if aviation it gets back to 100% tomorrow, you're not going to stop your Aviation for SA. I think some of the guys are almost reluctant to dive headfirst into this new project. They've got this thing in the back of their mind, if I get offered that aviation job tomorrow, I'm there. And it's a little bit dangerous, because if aviation doesn't come back, or it takes a bit longer, you're going to be stuck. And there's nothing wrong anymore with having something on the side. You should have something on the side.
Yeah. It's critical to have something.
You have to have something on the side.
Yeah.
You have to. Even when things get back to normal, have something on the side. Have something there that you're passionate about in your own, for yourself. Something that we spoke about before the show. Craig, have you seen on Netflix a documentary called My Octopus Teacher?
No.
You gotta watch it.
It.
It's an incredible documentary.
South African guy, Craig, what was his
Craig
name?
Foster.
Craig Foster.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix. That's our tip for the week.
Yeah. Go check it out.
Go check it out.
Watch that.
I thought I was creative as a person until I watched that and realized, man,
It's an amazing story.
yeah, an amazing
Thoroughly
story. Actually made you quite proud to be a South African there, that there was a South African doing that. It was awesome. Craig, I asked, whenever we have a guest on, I've had my old man and Mark Dutton and Andre Duplessis, and I like to ask a question.
Preston and Ryan Perrock.
Oh, first question I want to ask, Craig, which of these chairs do you prefer? Because I'm looking at making some wholesale changes around the Brownie podcast, and I'm not entirely happy with my setup I've got here.
Well, if I choose this one, can I take it home?
Yeah, you can.
We're moving studios, but not necessarily we moving studios.
Yeah.
He's making changes.
Do you notice something here, Craig? This is my microphone, my iPad, my computer. Ryan's borrowing my microphone there. No, I'm only kidding. But going back to that question, I want to ask, you 21 years old, you've got a fresh comm, or you're in the process of getting your fresh comm. What advice would you give yourself? The world has changed, so that answer that you might have given a different answer 6 months ago to what you'd give now. We've already spoken about having a passion on the side. What are you telling your young self with a fresh comm?
Have a dream, but don't let that be the focus of your life. And that might sound controversial. The youngsters that were focusing on becoming a captain on an Airbus A380, now with Airbus A380s being phased out, maybe that upsets their dreams. So if you have a dream with an ultimate goal, you can't necessarily achieve that goal. Not due to anything that you've done or anything that you'll do, but because life changes, economies change. So have a dream, have a direction, but whatever you're doing now, do it to the best of your ability. It could be anything. whether you're fixing something at home, whether you're typing a document, whether you anything that you're doing now, you do to the best of your ability. People will see that you become a perfectionist, and then that almost creates the environment that you're working in, because you're striving for perfection, you expect perfection. And having your direction, you might find things along the way that might attract you, and then you know what, you change your direction and you go for that attraction. And that attraction might be flying a piston aircraft in the Okavango Delta. It might be flying a contract in Chad. It doesn't matter. Your direction changes, but do things properly and perfectly, and eventually you'll get to retirement and you would have enjoyed the journey. It doesn't go about the destination. And in fact, some people say it doesn't go about the destination, it goes about the journey. And I want to add something into that and say it's not the journey, it's the company on the journey. You can't do it alone. You've got to do it with others. There's that African proverb that says, if you want to go far, how does it go? If you want to go fast, I've got to think of this nicely now.
Go alone.
If you want to go, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And it's that togetherness that gets you where you need to go.
So don't go and sell your chairs just yet.
No, cheers.
No, but if you're going to end off with a proverb like that, there's definitely space for you on this podcast. There's no better place to end it. It's been a wonderful time. This is actually the first time we've spoken face to face like this, and it's on a podcast, which is cool. And I hope it's not the last. We are big supporters of Aviation for SA. All the details will be in the show notes. And thanks for supporting us. Thanks for everything you're doing for South African aviation and all our friends. Particularly the guys that have been stuck at SA Express. I know you've helped a few guys. So thanks, Craig, and keep going. You're a good example of what can be achieved.
Thank you. You mentioned, can I conclude with one last little bit of information? You mentioned a movie, the Octopus Netflix movie. I want to recommend a book called Who Moved My Cheese? That is it's symbolic of where we are now in our lives. The book goes about two mice, two people, two humans. There's a piece of cheese, and that cheese is symbolic about what's important to you in life. Now that cheese moves, what do? Do you sit and wait for more cheese, or do you go and find new cheese? So if you haven't read that book, Who Moved My Cheese, go and read it. It's actually very relevant now.
Cool. You know what, Craig, I've read that book every single year for probably the last 15 years. And it's not a book you read and put down. You will always pick that thing up, because as ridiculous as it sounds, the advice in that book is just brilliant.
It's profound. And it's a small book.
Yeah.
And even if you don't like reading small books, go and YouTube it. There's summaries of that book. And
there you go, Ryan. You can do that.
So if you can't read, a 3-minute summary of that book will direct you, will give you guidance.
Oh, that's great. That's definitely something for you to do over the weekend.
Next month.
The next month, yeah.
I read very slowly.
Cool, guys. Well, have a great weekend. We're here every Friday for the Friday show.
Thanks, guys, and thanks, Craig. It's been an awesome show.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Awesome. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Well, that's all for this week, folks. Thanks for listening and for your continued support. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already, and pass the show on to your friends, your families, and your colleagues. If you'd like to get in touch with us, my email address is in the show details. Stay positive, keep the passion alive, and we'll see you next week. Cheers for now.